Hey everybody, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching the Hot Zone. And this is a quick rundown of the news on World War III for April 14th, 2025. The United States and Iran recently held direct talks in Oman, which is the first time in many years that they have come together, actually, since the Obama administration. Officials described the tone as productive and calm. That was what came out from the United States. But Iran is saying that they won the talks, and they scheduled a second round of talks to happen very soon in Rome. President Trump has been warning that failure to reach an agreement could result in military consequences. And at the center of the talks is a proposed framework being called the Vienna Accord 2, with strict deadlines and European sanctions potentially returning by June if they don't come to an agreement. Now, the United States has been saying that Iran has to completely dismantle its nuclear program and stop supporting its proxies and dismantle its missile program. Iran says that's a non-starter, but when Steve Witkoff went in with the agreement, or he went into the talks with concessions before they even started talking. And those concessions would allow Iran to just limit their uranium enrichment rather than get rid of it altogether. Of course, Israel's opposition leader, Yair Lapid, has said the U.S. has to also block any enrichment in Saudi Arabia as part of a broader deal, arguing that uranium enrichment anywhere in the region is posing a serious threat to the entire region. So, behind the diplomatic curtain, though, the reality is even more dangerous. There's now clear evidence that Iran has actively plotted assassinations against American government officials, including President Trump. In 2024, the United States Justice Department charged a guy named Farhad Shakiri, an alleged agent of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, with planning a murder for hire plot to kill President Trump, or then candidate Trump. Shakiri was reportedly told by his IRGC handlers to prioritize that mission and that money was no object. They never caught him. He's still in Iran. So there's that. Now, that wasn't even an isolated case. Back in 2022, there was another IRGC member who was charged in a plot to assassinate former National Security Advisor John Bolton. And there were more reports that indicated former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was also targeted and had $1 million bounty placed on his head by Iran. Make no mistake, folks, this is acts of war. These are acts of war by Iran. Iran is warring against the United States. And so far, the United States is not warring back. Now, we're threatening, but those threats are getting diluted by Steve Witkoff offering concessions to Iran before they even get started with the talks. Now, they didn't actually talk face to face. They did meet face to face and shake hands for the cameras, but then they only talked through a mediator. And that was a win for Iran because that's what Iran said they would agree to. And so the outcome of round one of these talks is not good for the United States. Iran won the first round, I would say. Most people that are watching this believe that. Now, even more recently, there was a Pakistani guy who was arrested in the United States and accused of trying to recruit people to carry out politically motivated assassinations, potentially including the president or others. And the U.S. has warned Iran that any other attempt to carry out those plots would be treated as an act of war. What? They are acts of war. They have been. And we haven't done anything about it so far. So why would Iran believe us if we told them we're going to treat any further aggression as an act of war? Of course, Iran denies involvement. And, you know, the proof, though, tells a different story. There was a coordinated effort, and is a coordinated effort, by this regime to retaliate for the killing of General Qasem Soleimani back during President Trump's first term. All of this is really raising serious questions about the credibility of any agreement with Tehran and whether the regime is negotiating in good faith. If the negotiations in Russia are any indicator, Iran is learning from President Putin that you can just play the United States, just mock them to their face, and the United States won't do anything about it. So the European Union is imposing new sanctions on Iran, targeting individuals and organizations, including judges and the director of the prisons and things like that, over their Iran's detention of European citizens. And of course, Iran is trying to use those guys as political bargaining chips. That's why they take prisoners over there. That's why it's not a good idea to go hiking inside Iran. Good way to get turned into a political pawn. So over the weekend, back in Yemen, Houthi forces launched 2 missiles toward Israel. They say they were targeting Ben Gurion Airport, but the sirens went off all the way in Jerusalem, which is pretty far from Ben Gurion Airport. The IDF reported that they successfully intercepted the missile. One of them was a dud, but one of them actually made it into Israeli airspace, was intercepted, and fell in the Hebron. That's the latest in a series of more than 20 missile and drone attacks by the Houthis since mid-March, which they justify by saying is retaliation for Israel's operations in Gaza. In response to that, the United States carried out actually more like 60 precision airstrikes on Houthi targets, including arms depots, security facility, military posts, and things like that. Other American strikes were also reported in the northern region of Yemen, and Washington is looking to degrade the Houthis' abilities to wage war against global shipping and Israel. Now, they're not being very successful at that yet, but they're trying, right? Now, meanwhile, the internationally recognized government of Yemen, which is separate from the Houthis, is preparing to launch a major ground assault in Yemen against the Houthi-held port city of Hodeidah. They say they've got 80,000 troops reportedly being mobilized for the operation. And though the United Arab Emirates officially withdrew their troops from Yemen in 2019, they are continuing to support the Yemeni government in this, as is the United States. So we actually have troops on the ground in Yemen, very small numbers, special forces guys that are working with the Yemeni government, the internationally recognized Yemeni government, to prepare to try to push the Houthis out. And that's going to be a big fight. There's no question about that. The United States is just trying to put its thumb on the scale and assist the Yemeni government and make it more likely that they will actually succeed this time, because the last time they fought a 7-year war and failed. So there's that. Okay, let's talk about Gaza. The IDF is expanding its ground operations and pushing deeper into northern Gaza and southern Gaza. They entered Gaza City's Daraj and Tufa neighborhoods over the past 48 hours and say that they hit more than 90 Hamas infrastructure sites, which include tunnels and observation posts and weapons depots. One major tunnel was about half a mile long, and they say was about 60 feet deep, and they destroyed it along with a cache of explosives and anti-tank weapons that they found nearby. They're also continuing with their precision strikes all across the Gaza Strip. Again, Israel's new plan is for every day we don't get our hostages back, we're going to take more ground in Gaza and you're not getting it back. They're going to flatten whatever they find that's a threat, and the area that Gazans can live in is going to continue to shrink until they get their hostages back. They also took out some high-ranking, like a Hamas police commander in Han Yunis, a sniper commander, things like that. But let's talk about the one that's getting all the news, and that is the IDF struck a command center which was embedded in the Al-Ahili, I don't know if I said that right, hospital. And look, the media is setting its hair on fire, and oh, the IDF blew up the last functioning hospital in Gaza. Well, Hamas was using it as a command center. And Israel warned everybody to get out. Everybody got out, and then they blew it up. Nobody was killed in that strike, reportedly. Now, that we're seeing European leaders come out of the woodwork now in support of Hamas, in support of the Palestinians, and saying, we're standing against Israel's aggression. This is not Israel's aggression. This is Israel's defense. Israel is defending itself and trying to get back their hostages. Why wouldn't these European leaders, if they had 1 ounce of moral clarity in their brain, they would be saying, release the hostages, release the hostages. Anything that happens to Palestinians while they are still holding hostages from Israel is not Israel's fault. That's all I have to say about that right now. So speaking of hostages, Hamas released a new propaganda video that featured Israeli-American soldier Adon Alexander. He was taken captive October 7th, and the video claims he's been held for 551 days. IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi reaffirmed that recovering the hostages remains the military's supreme task. But they're so far not that. I mean, that doesn't mean that they're going to prioritize that over getting rid of Hamas. Why? Well, Hamas continued to fire rockets over the weekend. 5 rockets were launched in the last 24 hours alone, and one of them was intercepted near Re'im. Nobody was injured by those, but they came out of Khan Yunis and 6 neighborhoods in Nuseirat. And so the IDF issued evacuation warnings for those and started striking those targets with airstrikes and artillery. So let's move up to the Israel-Lebanon border. Hezbollah has reportedly transferred almost 200 military outposts to the Lebanese army. Now, why would they do that? Because Israel keeps blowing them up. So Israel is hammering these military outposts by Hezbollah. Hezbollah doesn't want to lose any more of those because they're expensive to build. And so they're turning them over to the Lebanese army, obviously in hopes that when they decide to fight Israel again, they'll just go in and retake them from the Lebanese army, because the Lebanese army is kind of like the redheaded stepchild to Hezbollah. They don't really stand up to Hezbollah much. Okay, so let me see here. What else we got? It's Passover in Israel, and so in various different IDF units, commanders are sharing Passover seders with frontline troops and are underscoring their commitment to both readiness and recovering the hostages. Now let's talk about nuclear diplomacy. We talked about those talks in Oman. We already discussed that. But Iran is basically doing exactly what Russia is doing, and that is talking about negotiations. Okay, when you hear them say the word framework, oh, we've agreed on a framework. What that means, that does not mean that there's an agreement. What that means is we've agreed to agree to start thinking about starting a plan that might lead to negotiations which could possibly result in a ceasefire. That's what a framework means. A framework is diplomat speak for we didn't get anything accomplished. And so keep that in mind when you hear these news items talking about a framework. Also, as I mentioned, these European leaders, which are standing up for the Palestinians, the European Union themselves pledged almost $2 billion to the Palestinian Authority over the past, just over the weekend, that they say is contingent on reforming the Palestinian Authority's government anti-corruption, things like that. You don't reform the Palestinian government; you get rid of it. You can. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. Um, let's see. Oh, in Syria, the UAE paid a high-level visit to al-Shara, or al-Jilani, they call him, the new leader of Syria. More on this, just file that under. These people are trying to make this a real country. They would really like for Syria to just stop being a hotspot. And so they're even willing to just fall all over themselves to give Syria to a bunch of radical jihadis who used to be part of the Islamic State in order to say that Syria has been pacified. Just as always, choosing the very wrong way to go about bringing peace. Speaking of which, in Russia, Russia continues to bomb Ukraine indiscriminately. On Sunday, they massacred 37 people in the town of Sumy. I can show you on the map here. Sumy is in the border region in kind of northeast Ukraine. And so here's Sumy. And so not far from the Russian border, right up here. And so it was just about time for church. People were on their way to Palm Sunday services, and a missile came in, killed a bunch of people. And then they waited until the first responders and everybody came to help pull people out of the rubble. And then they fired a cluster munition at the same spot and killed a bunch more people. So again, 37 people dead, over 100 wounded. And this is in the midst of supposed peace talks with the United States. So this is what it looks like when President Putin thumbs his nose at President Trump and his peace plan. So Putin is continuing to make it very, very clear he has no interest whatsoever in peace. Okay, that's all I've got for today. Thank you for watching The Hot Zone. Please go to chuckholton.com and subscribe over there for a lot of extra content. And we will see you next time. Take care.